Good.
Most importantly, have you all got tea? Everybody's got tea and scones and everything, because what we're going to do this afternoon is it's very, very casual. I'll introduce you to my colleagues here, but it's also I'm going to ask you guys questions. Don't feel threatened. You can say, I don't want to answer, but it's really talking about theatre. So either you've been in theatre, I'm seeing Marty, who I will ask about designing. She's a great theatre designer, and that's the sort of thing. So I'll ask questions, anyone answer, that's fine. But these guys, let me introduce Jane, who is the mother of Tanya, who's just left, and she's come over from Saturna to be here.
You didn't have to say that.
And this is Kate Dahlstrom, this is Malcolm Page, and this is Tim. Now what we know, what I'm going to say about you guys first, because we'll have the first question, and the first question, I'm going to start with you, Jane, is, all right, you have an amazing daughter of theatre, and I know that you, Tanya will talk to me about you and what she does, like over in Saturna, but I thought, where does Tanya's love for it come? And I've got a very strong feeling it's family started. So I want to know from you, how did you get interested? Were you ever involved in professional theatre? Or if not, doesn't matter, but how did you get interested in theatre? What was the first thing you saw that had that effect?
Well, the first thing I saw was pantomimes in Bristol during the war. And then, I can't remember which one. And then, so we saw lots of pantomimes. And then after the war, my first play was Peter Pan, a proper play.
Yeah.
And then, because I only lived 40 minutes on a quick train into the West End, the theatre was on my doorstep. My mother liked theatre, so she would take me, and then I went with my school friends. And then I met a man who was really passionate about theatre, so we went then, and then later on we got married. So really, I would really say that Brian is the theatre buff, or was the theatre buff, because he's died now. And he was the one that encouraged Tanya desperately, I would almost say, because that's what he would have liked to have done.
But you know, I wonder, I don't think this is just an English tradition, but if somebody asked me that question, I would have said pantomime, which was Cinderella, and then Peter Pan. And it was because of the flying machine.
Yes.
Has anyone here has had the same experience?
Did you first go to Peter Pan's?
I first went to Cinderella, and I wanted the Shetland pony. And my mother took me out screaming because I wanted the little Shetland pony that pulled the cart. But I went to Peter Pan, and then I was in awe. It was just fantasy, just fantasy. Okay, well, we'll come back to that later. Tim, and I said I thought I had done a stage play, but I hadn't, but we did a TV. But tell me about your background, because you're an East Londoner, but now you're here. So firstly, when did you come here? Secondly, how did you get involved in, was it local theatre or school theatre, whatever?
Well, I suppose my background, again, English, and I grew up just outside London, and was born just during the end of the war, and I always had a love of theatre. My mother was an artist, my father was a teacher, and we'd always had there was always seemed to be a great interest in theatre, particularly at elementary school and again at high school. And at high school in those days, it was an all-boys school in London, so it was a good mixture of people from all backgrounds. We had to produce a sort of, and be involved in a Shakespeare play sort of about every year. So I got a little bit involved in that, and I did love that. I don't think I was particularly good, but I really sort of enjoyed it. And then anyway, trying to keep the story short a little bit, I ended up in medicine at, funnily enough, at King's College Hospital in London, where Jane's husband had trained as well, and we didn't know one another at that time because he was a little bit older than I was, so we weren't there at the same time. And at King's, I was there at the time that one of the Cambridge Footlights, who was involved with the Monty Python crew and things, was medical student at King's who actually dropped out and got a contract, I think, with the BBC, and his name's just gone out of my mind. It wasn't one of the, John Cleese bunch, but they all knew one another. From the Cambridge Footlights, which you probably have read about, they're very involved, the Cambridge University Theatre Group. And he helped us put together a few sort of pantomimes in the medical school at King's. And I remember being, there was one that I was involved in called Lister's Magic Spray, which was based on Joseph Lister, who developed, the carbolic and saved a lot of lives by helping people not get so infected with surgery. And I must shorten this, I know very much. But anyway, that's my interest. And then medical career sort of changed a bit. I came to Vancouver, I have a godmother at that time in West Vancouver, and loved Vancouver, worked in VGH as a student, and then went back to the UK, and eventually came out to Vancouver, and then eventually ended up in family practice in Maple Ridge. And in Maple Ridge had a thriving, and Jane was in Maple Ridge and ended up being neighbours at one point. And I can tell stories about Tanya from when she was younger, but I don't want to get it too. But Maple Ridge had a thriving arts community, didn't it, Jane? Thriving arts community. Not just theatre, but all sorts of things. And that was, and then we had a few sort of funny productions and things, very sort of, all very amateurish. And that's really by my love of theatre. And the first play I ever saw was actually produced in the Theatre Royal Stratford, not far from where Bernard grew up. And that was the rather bleak Brendan Behan's The Queer, 1955. And I can't remember all the details. I can tell you one quick story, and then I promise I'll shut up. One quick story, this is true because I can remember it, because we went with some of my buddies in an old second-hand car that we had. We drove to the theatre, which is in the East End of London. Now it's very sort of fairly posh area. Then it was pretty, post-war, still a lot of bombing, and when you, I remember sort of you parked the car near the theatre, and a lot of the local young boys would come up to you and say, "Look after your car, mister," and you'd sort of say, "What do you mean, look after a car?" And then the word was, and we quickly realized the word was, if you didn't slip them some cash and say, "Oh yes, look after the car," you came back and the car was elevated on bricks and all the wheels were gone. And that is one other story.
They were probably thriving young actors.
Yes, probably were. Anyway, that's sort of a long story.
Maple Ridge, what's was there a theatre? Is it still there, the theatre?
I don't think
it's folded. It's folded.
Yeah, I think the theatre itself folded.
It's folded.
It's not Vagabond, is it?
No. It used to be.
It was.
I can't remember. Maple Ridge Players. It was the Maple Ridge Players, wasn't it?
Yes, Maple Ridge Players, and there were other things going on, but that was the theatre, wasn't it? Really, with the,
I would just say, you were East London, I was North London. We were a little bit.
And I was South East.
Yes.
Not anymore. East London is now like bloody cyberspace. Now, Kate, I've got here that you are a doctor of. I mean, it's not theatre. Experience educator, curriculum developer, writer, presenter. But you are I'd say are crazy about theatre.
Oh, totally.
So how did that start? What did that start with?
Well, I'm a country girl from Chilliwack. So we didn't really have theatre back when I was growing up. But I'm very musical, and I was involved in vocal lessons, and I played the violin before I went to school, and we had little theatrical things, just playing the music and singing and dancing and that. And but I would say I got into loving performing it before I got into theatre, because it was wartime when I was a little girl, and my uncle had been stationed up in the Aleutians, but he would come to Camp Chilliwack, which was a large military base for quite a long time. And he would come into our house to visit his sister and his little niece, and he would bring his buddies with him. And there I would be with my white curly hair, and they'd put me on the table, and I would sing "On the Good Ship, Lollipop." and do my little dance and everything. And so I guess that's my first kind of theatrical thing. And as years went on, I moved away and went to different places and got involved in small town theater. I sang with the players in, Trail, and I sang with the Dawson Creek players and played. Dawson Creek Dawson Creek back in the 60s had lots of, not a lot to do. So you get out and, it's sort of like Mickey Rooney used to say, well, let's put on a play in the old movies, Yeah, that's what we did.
But didn't Dawson Creek, because if you might know Gillian Campbell, Klondike Lil, she was, there was a vaudeville up there. Was that Dawson Creek or
no, I think
or Dawson City?
Dawson City. That would be Dawson City.
Oh, okay. But
no,
Dawson Creek, Barkerville way, because that is also a big, the summer theatre. No.
Yes. No, this was just local theatre. The Dawson Creek is the start of the Hard Highway.
But you never wanted to be professional?
No, I didn't. I just loved doing things, but never even occurred to me, quite honestly, to be professional. Wow. So, and I was in education. I was busy. I could do lots of things there with having kids and putting on musicals and stuff. So, yeah.
But you see, that's interesting. I'll come to you in a minute, because I'm going to ask you guys what Kate said. I was all right. I was 1945. I was born, but I remember when I was 5, 6 years old, my parents and my aunts and uncles on a Saturday night would give me sixpence if in the corner in our kitchen, I would sing songs. And I did.
Yes.
And that's where you start.
Yes.
Jane, you said about pantomime and that, but that's the embryo where you start. Yeah. Now this guy has been was teaching at SFU and is quite prolific writer. And I remember being at the National Theatre one day, and I was reading a magazine, and actually, can't remember the play, Malcolm, but it was a play that was done at Shaw, and it raved about beautiful, bless her, Goldie Semple, one of Canada's greatest actresses, and at the end it said Malcolm Page plays international. But so, how did you get into theatre, and what was the back? Were you teaching theatre at SFU?
Yes.
And that, how did that happen? Did you come from England, or was it here? You started here.
I came from England to McMaster for an MA, and I was always very enthusiastic about theatre. I'd done a little bit of acting. I don't know what started me off particularly. It feels more instinctive than I'm turned on by somebody or some particular play. But the first play I remember was The Gondoliers, Gilbert and Sullivan. And I think I was taken because they couldn't get a babysitter, rather than they thought I would be turned on by Gilbert and Sullivan. And neither music nor singing made much impact. But there is some good comedy in Gondoliers, and the Duke of Plaza Toro led his regiment from behind, and I enjoyed that. And then Sunday school was quite enterprising, and we did a play about Judas Maccabeus in which he killed everybody, and the play ended when I was killed and there's nobody left. And there was another play about the history of the Bible, which, as Bernard says, must have been a long play. And I played 5 parts, and I wore the same sack for all 5 parts. And I ran across the stage shouting, "The bishop's burning Bibles! Fire! Fire!" which was quite dramatic.
How old were you when you did this?
10 or 12.
Huh?
Wow.
Still young. And then
But you decided to turn to writing about theatre as opposed to acting. Well, not at 12, but later on in life.
Yes, and I can't really remember it as a conscious decision. I think I was always a rather casual kind of actor. And my acting in the Lower Mainland has been with Vagabond in New West and Stage 43 in Coquitlam, which I'm glad to say is total obscurity.
But Vagabond is nothing.
No,
like-
Vagabond is not, and announces 4 plays for a season, and we don't know about it because it doesn't, of course, get into the professional theatre listings, and
Yeah.
you really have to look up Vagabond, and round about now, they're probably announcing interesting plays for the next 6 months.
Yeah. I mean, the thing about that, and I don't say we laugh about community theatre. On the contrary, so many professional actors, myself included, started in community theatre, and it's an amazing foothold. And there's that brilliant piece that Frayne wrote called, what was it called? You see, the mind's going. The 3 acts, you know, and the second act is all in, is no dialogue. I've done it 3 times.
Oh, noise is off.
Noise is off.
Yes.
So Frayne sort of, he did the nth of that. But community theatre is the lifeblood. And Sarah, bless her, Sarah Rogers is doing wonders up at Jericho. Andre Caris did 30 odd years and did super as well. And Sarah's carrying it on. But I want to ask, anybody would like to say, well, you don't have to be a professional actor, but have you done community theatre? Have you wanted to do community theatre? If you did you enjoy it? Do we have anyone that's tried it? Yes.
I haven't actually done community theatre as such, but I grew up in Finland, and I was about 7 or 8 years old when my mother took me for the first theatre performance, and that was at the local community theatre. They had a very active community theatre life in my hometown in southern Finland, and I think mother took me first because she didn't want to leave me home alone and wanted to find out if I enjoyed it and if I behaved myself. And I actually went to see a theatre performance long before I ever went to a movie theatre. And many of the actors from that town's community theatre ended up in the National Theatre in Helsinki as performers. So it was that was my first start in theatre, and I think I've been a theatre lover ever since. Vast majority of my life.
Yeah.
So community theatre is so important, a kind of a foothold for bigger things to come.
I do have a question. I was going to do it later on, but you brought it. That's a nice start to the subject. There, as I'm sure all of us, and I will ask you guys, we've seen something at an early age that we've gone, oh, yes. And either you become an actor, or you become a dancer, or a singer, or you just want to go to theatre, dancing or singing. Yeah, Liam, tell us.
Okay, I can attest to that because I was taken by my parents to see Giselle when I was about, I don't know, maybe 8 years old. What did I do? I cried all the way home in the car because I thought, how does one get there? How does one experience this kind of heaven? So I guess that is the thing that sparked me to want to get into and onto the limelight of the magic of the stage, which eventually happened later in my life.
I was going to say, you're a very tall lady. First time I saw you, I thought, that has to be a dancer. So did you do?
Yes, it was dance that I did.
And where was that? Was that here?
Well, it was Vancouver and Toronto, but more recently here, because I had done burlesque in my 30s in Vancouver and Toronto, and then went off to become a registered massage therapist for 20 years. And then after that, I concentrated on my artwork. But the burlesque community found out that I had been a dancer, and they said, come back. Because I kept going to their performances because I loved their performances. They were having just so much fun, and the costumes were so beautiful. And they said, come back. And by then I was 79. I said, you've got to be kidding me. And they said, no, we are not kidding. So one of the performers and producers of burlesque shows said, Lorna, that's what happened.
Now, Lorna,
And
you're
79,
saying,
I went back and did 4 performances.
and you're saying burlesque. We're talking folie bergère burlesque, yes?
Yes, the costumes.
I didn't know that. You see, wow, I don't know. There's a book there. Jane,
Yep.
a show that you've seen that's really inspired you, or a piece of music, or a dance?
Well, I guess the thing that's inspired me, and I can't remember what the play was, but it's a little story about Nicola Cavendish, because you'll all know her. But it was at the Playhouse, and it was the first production she was in, and she had a teeny weeny little part. And I just remember they were all, I don't know, all these faces that were around something else, and the acting was going up here. But she was sitting in the front. There were about 7 or 8 girls' faces, and they sat there. They were there all the way through the performance, and I was mesmerized by Nicola Cavendish. I can still see her. She wasn't doing anything, but she had something that mesmerized me, and I'll never forget that. I can still see her now, her face.
There's a lovely story I know about Nikki. Do you know Nikki Cavendish?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, well, she is a senior actress, like a lot of the seniors we are. And I think she does TV a lot more, but she is a tremendous actress, because on stage you can't tell the difference between acting and Nikki. But she had a great friend, Philip Clarkson. They graduated at UBC. Philip Clarkson was about 6'3", and it used to be afro ginger hair. And Nikki is at that Scottish. And she was doing a performance at the old Playhouse, at the Playhouse. And there's next door, you go through an alleyway there, a corridor, and you can get into the wings at the Queen Elizabeth. Now, at that time, they were doing Swan Lake. And Nikki had come off stage, and I think it was an Irish play she was doing too. Anyway, she came off stage, and Philip was the designer, but he would stand in the wings and watch her. And she said to him, well, we'll be able to see a bit of Act 2 of Swan Lake. So she's in full costume. They go, and they wander, this way, this way, this way. And they hide, and the music starts, the music starts. And the set went up, and Nikki and Philip were on stage. And Nikki evidently went to the audience, and they walked back in Act 2 of Swan Lake. But Nikki is a terror. She's a holy terror to work with, but God, she was fantastic.
Yeah, she didn't say a word, but she just made me want to look at her.
That's even worse when she doesn't have lines. But yeah, she is a treat. Kate, can you pick out something that's really affected you, that had left a mark?
You know, honestly, I grew up so much with music. It was just kind of always there, and trying to pick out a special time, I really don't know. You know, there was always music in the house, and you know, I had vocal lessons and you know, played the piano and played the violin, and there was the music really more than theater. I came onto theater later in life when I was as a young woman, and saw The Ecstasy of Rita Jo. If you're going to say first play, wow, you know, and I think that was probably when I thought, oh, there's more to theater than just music.
Well, it must have been. I came here in &74, and I worked for Bill at the Arts Club, and the two things that people talked about in Vancouver was Jacques Brel and The Ecstasy of Rita Jo.
Yes,
So
it was marvelous. It was probably late 60s,
Yeah.
and it premiered here, I believe.
Yes.
Did it?
The audience was all dressed up in the finery, and at the halftime mark, they weren't prepared for Rita Jo,
Yep.
for the language or anything. And the half mark, nobody was talking much. It was like a shock, right? And I was up like, anybody, native person, whatever, never going to be able to look at a native person again and think of them in any kind of low manner way, because it was so well done, it was so good, and they were real. So the fashion folks just sort of shut up.
Yeah.
I'm exaggerating, but still.
Yeah.
And I remember when she came on, Franny Highland, and it was, I didn't know who was Rita Jo or whatever, right? But there was this woman came out, sort of sat on the floor with some other people, and I thought, that has to be her. The play's gone on now for I don't know how long, but it has to be Rita Jo, right? And it was. And there were some extraordinary memorable moments.
Amazing production. It was a Canadian classic now.
And that would have been one of the, because it was First Nations, isn't it?
Yes, it
Subject.
Oh, well,
yes, yes, it was.
It would have been one of the
Yes,
first.
yeah. It was an amazing story, and one of the things I remember, about that play was the tremendous lighting. Because at one point, Rita Jo was lying on the floor, she's in jail, and but the only reason she's in jail is the lighting shows like bars on her as she's lying there. It's just absolutely amazing. So yeah.
You don't know who did the set and lighting thing, do you, Marty? Just
no.
because I knew it was played last night. But I know it was a classic in Canadian history, in Vancouver history, definitely.
I thought it was quite amazing. I mean, everybody, because they'd never seen anything like it before. They'd never seen a person like that portrayed before, or so it was a real eye-opener. I was so pleased by him.
Yeah. We should talk to Donna about it at the fire hall.
Oh yeah.
Oh, right.
Tim, there've been a you mentioned the Behan play, but I mean, and we'll take it a later time. Maybe when you're here in Vancouver. Is there anything that you've seen that's really, I won't say affected you, but really landed?
I think I can't remember anything specific. I know because when I was first we were in Vancouver before moving out to Maple Ridge, and then it was a little bit more difficult to come and go. And I can't remember anything particular, but certainly a lot of things at the Arts Club. What I do remember is I tended to gravitate towards comedy, if a play had some comedy in it, and also in thinking back to a little bit earlier to you mentioned the British. The musical comedy, the British plays.
Oh yeah.
Gilbert and Sullivan. A senior moment there with it. Yes, Gilbert and Sullivan. I've always enjoyed but I think the comedy, and I've always been interested, even in the film side of comedy. And one thing that's always struck me is you see so many things have seen so many things that are televised or shorter films that I've always thought would make fantastic theatre, either as a production on its own or in parts, as it were, and not being that end and not knowing anything too much about the actual production side. That may be a sort of a silly thought, but I think it's the comedy, and I'm trying to think of one of the comedies that stood out, but I'm lost a little bit in Vancouver.
Yeah.
Other than
Malcolm, now you've seen so much, so say two things that have really affected you that you'd love to go to see again.
Okay. I've seen nearly 3,000 evenings, I think, in theatre.
Yeah, we don't need 3,000, but 2 will do.
Well, one of those I want to talk about, John Giuliani was a live wire as a young man in the 60s at Simon Fraser University. He had his own company then, which he called Savage God, which he explained W.B. Yeats in Paris in 1896 had seen a Jarry play, and Yeats had said, after us, the savage God. Anyway, Giuliani in the early 70s was doing Savage God shows around Vancouver, often in the old art gallery, which had a downstairs, and he liked moving the audience about and walking around. And he announced a show called Celebration, which was going to be done once at 3:00. I was there, and the audience, men and women, were separated, and men watched scenes from a girl's experience and growing up, a lot of movement, a lot of music, and Donna Wong, his fiancée, and John was starring in this show, and they were getting closer together, and it suddenly dawned on me, an extraordinary feeling I still remember, dawned on me, perhaps this is for real, perhaps they are really getting married, and this is a show transcending the art of theatre to be a couple coming together. And for 10 minutes I was asking myself, is this real or are they acting or both? Which of course it was both. And then it came out, they were exchanging rings, and there was a minister actually to marry them, but it was a unique mixing of fiction and reality.
That sounds very much like John.
Now, John did return, went off to Toronto and Edmonton, and then was back in middle age as a CBC radio producer, mostly of dramas. So he was around in the 70s, 80s again, as some people may remember. Can I have a bit of time to talk about more?
Sure.
Okay. Most of my memories seem to be outside Vancouver, which is curious, and most of them seem to be 30, 40 years ago, as though my responses were stronger then than more recently. But I remember UBC theatre students at one time did a 6-week season in July and August in which they did 3 plays. And in around 1971, 72, Richard Azunian, who was a very, very talented director in particular, he went off and ran 2 other companies later. But Richard Azunian wrote a musical adaptation of Merry Wives of Windsor with Marek Norman doing the music. And in this August season of students, he'd written it, he directed it, and he acted the lead, the part of Falstaff, which is almost a unique triple, I think. And I think he only became the star because the man he'd cast as Falstaff dropped out. But this is where I have a fairly rare kind of memory of a particular particular moment when Richard Azunian was standing at the side of the stage, twirling an umbrella for some reason in one hand and singing 65 and getting younger as Falstaff, and 55 and 45. And he was obviously relishing being the star and the performer and sing his own material, but it was, as I say, a kind of snapshot I still call to mind after many years.
Well, Richard went on, did he become a critic for the Globe and Mail?
For the Toronto Star,
For the Toronto
eventually.
Star.
He went from Vancouver to run the company in Manitoba, and then to run the company in Halifax. And then somehow his career fizzled, and as you say, he ended up as the critic of the Toronto Star, which is not to be despised, but he was, at one point he looked to be on the way to running Stratford Festival.
I think I did his, what do you call it, his final production at UBC. We did Scapino, a musical from an Italian play. And Camille Mitchell, superb actress, who lives in West Van now, she was a student then. Bruce Greenwood has done incredibly well as a TV actor, movie actor. And amazing, and Goldie had just graduated. UBC was a fantastic phenomenon.
It was.
And those
Massacre.
people came out.
And critic John Brockington.
And Brockington, yeah. Mind you, they used to say about Dr. John, he would go and see shows in New York and come back and do the image of them. But they had amazing, the brilliant designer was Richard Wilcox, I think, stage because Scapino was three buildings with 2 lanes and a lagoon. And I go, what? That was the budget, and UBC didn't question the budgets then, but they do now. The question I want to ask us, but everyone, do you think theatre has changed recently, for the good or the bad? Does anyone want to pick that up? Does anyone want to say it's better or it's worse or it's the same as? Does it worry us? How do we feel? Kate, can I throw it at you?
Oh dear. I think theatre's become so much more diverse that excites me, and I love new things, and so I love the new plays and that. I recently saw My Name Used to Be Marie. It's over at the Arts Club right now, and it's a Canadian play. It's young people in it. It tells a story about the Métis, and there's music in it, even though it's not a musical. And that kind of really excites me, that we're doing way more exploration than I think that we used to, and we're looking at different cultures now. I think theatre's getting better. Yep.
Okay, good. Jane?
I think theatre has changed. It's not nearly so stylised as it was when I was young. You know, sort of Laurence Olivier up there emoting away, and then somebody else doing some more emoting, and it's much more natural, which I like. So I really can't say more than that, but to me it has changed, the format's changed, and the rhythm and the cadence has changed with it.
Yes.
I think what's fabulous is that Pal has brought the scripted play to life. I don't know, has anybody else done this in history, done professional scripted plays for the audience? Because what's happening there is very strong and vital.
Yeah. So they're like, what
Like
does
what
Tanya
happened
call
at
it?
home.
Off your feet or something. I think
Yes.
that was Joy
As they did in
Coghill's.
the play Home.
I think the Arts Club did a long time ago, did do some staged readings.
Yeah. Well, I know John Lazarus, who lives in the building, because Lynn was here yesterday, but John Lazarus, he wants to, in PAL, have a section where we can do new plays or replays. I think that's, I think plays, I mean, yes, for me, it has changed, but then I'm at the end, I'm at the twilight, or whatever we want to call it. But I regret, and of course it's finance, that we're losing such the great plays. So if there was a play reading, I would love to say do Chekhov's, or Ibsen's, or Strindberg, by reading scripts. And yes, do it in 1 week, because that's all we could afford, because they're even expensive. But Tim, what do you think? Do you think theatre has changed for good or bad, or it's natural it should change, or you haven't seen a change?
No, I agree with what's been said, actually, and I like the change. I think much more diverse. Going back, as you probably remember, it was, as Jane was saying, a lot of the wonderful actors and actresses in the tradition. But in a sense, I always remember, certainly as a student in London in those days, it was interesting to see how sometimes it was difficult for producers to get a new play actually produced, particularly in London. Now London, it's I suppose a bit like Toronto, New York, bigger cities. But I think that's changing a little bit, and I think with what I love about the smaller community theatres is that where they exist, they get involved with simple things, as it were. And that's being a bit, not simple, but a straightforward play reading, for example, which would be good. So I think the diversity and the change, the financing is a problem. I think we've reached a point where it's difficult, obviously, for not just in theatre, but I think in the sense in film and in all the arts to getting appropriate sort of financing. But yeah, no, I like the trend.
Yeah. Actually, Tanya's just gone because I know she suffered quite a bit this year because of taking the funds away, which I think is disgusting.
Yes.
But we will still survive, you know. But Uncle Vanya, we will have peace, Uncle Vanya. We will survive, Uncle Vanya. Malcolm, has it changed a lot for you?
I think standards are higher, quality is higher, but go back a generation or two and more shows seem to be, sorry, but this is the best we can do with too little time and too little money. And I think there's fewer shows where that's true now. And I did just want to comment, what we are missing out badly currently is the great plays. Chekhov, Ibsen, Strindberg, exactly my list, and then I'd say Shaw and Sheridan, and plays of the last 40 years also worth reviving. So, and the arts used to do better. In fact, Doll's House currently is the first show from the great tradition of drama with a capital D that we've had at the arts in 3 or 4 years.
Well, I know, and I know it's a financial thing. I didn't see it in production, but I know Seamus, Tanya's son, directed Metamorphosis. If I was on the grants committee, I would have said to him in the company, which was United Players, here's a grant, put it on in the big theatre, and if you want, use a swimming pool. I know they did that when it started in the US, but it is that finance. Tanya, I'm controversial here. I said, and you can correct me, you've not been getting the grants that you've got. For me, from my point of view, and I'm talking about us, this isn't me personally, Joy Coghill, bless her, started Western Gold,
31 years?
Right. Joy Coghill, we are a vast country, so it's not like England where you've got a Judi Dench, blah, 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 and everyone knows. It's a vast country, so I understand that. But Joy Coghill was an institution in theatre, and she was British Columbia's institution, Vancouver's, and she created Western Gold. And I think the government should recognise this, particularly Canada Council. I hear that it's now run by bureaucrats, which, as far as I'm concerned, if I take my car in, I want a mechanic to work on it, not some idiot in the office who can work a fax machine. How do you feel about that? I mean, I know you've got to be careful what you say because you're trading on people's feet, or you don't know the unknown people. They say, "Oh, Tanya Dixon-Moran said this," but I mean, will this ever be a case that we will be financed, that we don't have to live in terror? We don't have to say we can't do Ibsen, we can't do the great plays, we can't do a Metamorphosis professionally with 30 people. You know, I mean, I'm glad I don't run theatre, but how do you deal with that frustration?
Well, it's hard, right? And I don't want to start talking too much about granting and stuff like that because, but it's a complicated situation. I've sat on a bunch of juries many, many times and had to jury many, many grant applications. So it is complicated in the sense I sat on one jury and often tell the story. I had to read 196 applications. So that was 196. At least they were 60 pages each, 70 pages each. You're given about 15 minutes to get through them. So it's got to grab you. It has to grab you. And so out of that 196, we had a jury of 4 of us, and then there was the officer, there was the Canada Council, and we were only able to fund 32. 32 out of 196, because there's just not a lot of money, right? And so it's complicated. And so I understand the jury system, so I try not to get too upset when we don't get funding, because I understand it. That said, I think some of the systems have changed. I believe now that the officers at some places weigh in more than they used to be when it was just a peer jury, because often they know information about a company that maybe the jury doesn't know, because they've been working with them for many years, have been, so I think that's the reasoning behind it. It gets complicated if your officer changes, because you no longer have the officer that knows you and has seen the sort of scope of your work over time. So it is frustrating that as only 2 companies in this country that are mandated to keep seniors working and program stuff for senior artists, there's only 2 in the country, and the other one in Toronto is fabulous, much less active than we are, much less active. So really, we are the company in the country doing this, and we're based in British Columbia, and we get very little funding from the BC Arts Council. Very little, right? And the other problem is that, and I wrestle with this, is that of course, funding is also taxpayers' money, which is also our audience's money anyways, right? So I have to be aware of that. That, you either get out of their pocket this way, you get out of their pockets that way. It's still coming out of the pockets, right? And then we don't have a big enough house to sell to even begin to make a dent in the cost of doing a show.
I mean, the irony is if the Playhouse was pulled down, the money would go to a football stadium.
Too
That's a sad
true.
thing. I remember Susan Wright, bless her. Susan Wright said to me in 1975 when I had to go down to immigration, she said, the first question they're going to ask you is, what do you do for a living? And I went down to immigration, and the guy said to me, he'd got everything, because Ray Michael wanted me to do a show at City Stage, and he said, what do you do for a living? I said, I'm an actor. He said, no, but what do you do for a living? Now I know what he meant. Okay, on that controversial level, I want to have we seen, and everyone else here, have we seen a play, a performance, a dance, a song, whatever, that's offended you or you've disliked? Tim?
Oh gosh.
If you don't want to hurt anyone's feelings,
Yeah, I don't think I've ever been offended by a show. I mean, there's been, and I'm trying to remember which one it was now. I have walked out at the interval in one show at the Arts Club a couple of years ago, and I can't remember, of course, which one it was.
I was out of town.
Yes, I don't think it's in, but no, I don't think I've ever been offended. I think, and I think I'm trying to be a better person in the sense that if one senses that there's that possible offence which the play might be trying to actually push out to the audience, make people. That's okay. I should sort of accept that and live with it. So that's my sort of short answer to that. Yeah, I never. Yeah.
I think from an actor, that's a nice answer to hear.
Yes.
Malcolm.
Sorry, I've nothing at the tip of my tongue on this one.
You think about it, we'll come back to you.
Yeah.
Kate?
Yeah. I can't think of being offended. I can think about being disturbed, though. I'm thinking, was it the History Boys?
I was in that, so yes.
You were in it.
No, it's all right.
Yes.
I think I know what you're
Yeah.
getting at.
And that was disturbing. But I didn't feel offended. I thought, something that
It
maybe
was-
goes on,
yeah,
like
it was.
what really happened.
It was a play about a Yorkshire grammar school, and the headmaster wanted to get his boys into Oxford, and that would be a kudos for the school. And so he employed a young teacher who his idea was teaching them the style, the quick answers to get into Oxford. And the character I played, Hector, was the old school who believed in the Renaissance and believed in the arts and the writing. And my character at one point said about the other teacher, he said, "You're teaching journalism, I teach literature." And that was the parallel. And I got a lot of wonderful letters from school teachers. But I know there was that dichotomy that do you sail yourself down the river to get into the top university, or do you go with Hector and get an open education of the arts and being able to talk? And I think Bennett, I'm not going to go on my soapbox, but Bennett was way ahead of his time, because now, reading in The Guardian a while ago, there's this horror now, which we probably all know about, young people with cell phones that just live on the cell phones, never look up, never talk. You know, I know that's not the case. I have friends and their children are more enterprising, but that was the sort of thing, and it was very controversial. It wasn't performances you hated, was
Oh,
it?
heavens, no. No, no, no.
Like a breathless eye,
I stood and applauded at the end.
Well said. You see that, Jane?
Well, I didn't see your production of that. I've only seen the one that was done in Britain,
Oh, the movie, yeah.
and it just turned my heart over.
That's
But no, and I don't get offended by plays, but I think I really didn't want to look at that, you know. I don't have to listen at my age to a lot of vulgar language. I think, well, other people enjoy it, but I don't really want to see that.
How
I
about
really don't. You know, I
how-
think, you know, it's not offending me. I think I just don't want to see it.
Yeah.
I don't allow people to swear in my house. If they do, they're out the door, adults or not.
You got that?
But you know,
Everybody.
you know. And so they don't, because I don't see the point of it at my age to have to see something that I don't really want to see or listen to. Nothing's really offended me ever. It's just not for me.
Oh, wonderful, you guys. Now, we must have somebody who's been offended or not offended. Marty, what's offended you? What is it?
Offended me, we did a production at UBC with Tennessee Williams, and the Camino Real, and it was students, and Richard, the critic at the Sun, his name was Richards, I think, right? And he had headlines next day on students do verbal garbage. So, you know, that was quite a number, and everybody was offended by him, of course, but not by the production. But I mean, really, you know, there's an educated on the spot critic for you, right?
Now, there's a point, because Camino Real, Tennessee Williams, is not an easy play, but a brilliant play. Would you defend that, or would you say it is not a well-written play? Yeah. You're thinking.
You're looking at me.
Words of wisdom.
I suppose Camino Real is both a faulty play and a hugely ambitious play, and it did get quite a good but controversial playhouse production years and years ago now.
But it's a risque play. But I think when you put Tennessee Williams, let's not say he's old-fashioned. He's not passage. I mean, Cat on the Hot Tin Roof, Summer and Smoke. These are amazing writings. You know, this property is condemned when the young girl says to the boy, "Why don't you get on with Miss So-and-so?" And the school teacher, and the boy says, "Oh, she hates me, she hates me." And she says, "No." The girl says, "She doesn't hate you, she's just one of those disappointed people." That says it in Shakespeare, in 3 words, one of those disappointed people, you know. Anyone else that has seen something? Probably, was it Strindberg? I went to a Strindberg once, and my dear gods, I survived. But then I met a professor up at UBC, at SFU, who's favourite is Strindberg, and he did spend an hour explaining why Strindberg was great. But anyone else?
Strimbo.
What's that?
What is Strimbo?
Strindberg. Strindberg. What did I say?
Yeah.
No, I was saying the musician. Did I get the musician? Try that.
No, you got it right. I was just asking what it is.
It's a person.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
And are they very strident?
No, did I say Strindberg? I meant Schoenberg.
Berg. Yes.
You said, yeah, we did.
Forget
say-
it.
That's all right.
It's imprinted on my mind, that music. But no, is there anything that, yes?
So I never did any theater. I come from film, but I was one of the first to move into PAL. And this building, PAL, is the house that Joy Coghill built. That's how we look at it as. And Donna Wong Giuliani is fabulous.
Yeah.
She comes every Monday with a donation of bread from Terra Breads. She hasn't missed a soup night since the building was open, so that's the Donna story. And so I've seen theater from the beginning. And at the beginning, we did a play that David Louis produced, along with David Peterson. And they put me in it. And they wrote a little part for me, but they told me I had to audition. And I got the part, and David Kelly was directing it, and he went, "Get it together." I was just mesmerized by Rosie's performance, who I had to act with. And then so Rosie and I practiced, and it was all good. And so I've seen all the theater in PAL since it opened, and I'm very glad to. It's a lot of fun. I enjoy it.
That's good. That is good to hear. It really is. Is there anything else? Yes.
I wanted to comment that I agree with Jane about the language that seems to be changing out there. A few months ago, I went to see the Book of Mormon that was performed at the Royal Theatre in Victoria. And I knew it said in the explanation that there was going to be a lot of swearing, but I didn't understand exactly how much. So I was thoroughly offended at the end of the play. And it almost took away, I mean, the storyline was good, but it almost took away from my enjoyment of the whole play because of the language. There was the F word, it seemed like every second word. And I thought it really wasn't necessary. You could have said the same message without using those words. So I don't know whether is the theater language changing to being more, what do you call? More vulgar. Normally, or do the audiences expect that? Or, because I don't, I don't know, I just thought I'd go and see it because it was such a popular thing. But I almost regret that I went, because of the language.
Yeah, I think you raise a really good point, and I think, again, I'm not a playwright, so it's probably a playwright question, but that playwrights, especially as they're writing now, are writing to reflect what is happening in the world around them, and language has changed, right? I mean, the language has changed. I'm gonna say it, we say fuck, like we used to say, you know what I mean? And so it's part of the regular vernacular, and if playwrights are writing character-based stuff, right, they're going to be writing based on how they believe those characters speak in the world that they're reflecting. So I think it's a combination of, and I could be wrong, I'm not a playwright, but I have a sense that that's what it is especially with contemporary work, right? Because that's what people and younger playwrights are writing about, is the world that they know, and in the language that they know it. So, yeah, I mean, it comes up, and we did a show a few years ago, and I think there's people in the audience here who saw it, and it was 70-year-olds playing 17-year-olds, and it was salty, let me tell you, because 17-year-olds are salty, right? But coming out of the mouths of 70-year-olds, it was hilarious and fabulous, right? But, I mean, that's what I think is happening. I don't know if anybody else, an audience member, feels about that, you know?
But there is something interesting. I don't say, because I'm not part of the swinging crowd at the moment, but a lot of young actors will ask me a good audition piece, Bernard, and so I will say, we'll try this, and then I say, well, what do you got? What you planning on doing? What were you doing? And a lot of, now this is maybe coming from whatever school they're at, or tuition they're getting. If the speech has got a lot of F words and a lot of other words like that, then it's a good speech. And Seamus is Seamus here? Because it would be nice to hear what Seamus feels, because I feel that for an actor, what is a good speech, and it takes a long time to understand it if you're not a scholar, but what is a good speech is Shakespeare, you know. And so, and I do like the plays of John Pack. Your opinion, Seamus. What I was saying was, a number of actors, all right, mostly guys, will come up and say, Bernard, I've got an audition, blah, 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 and I have to do a piece of this and a piece of, and I go, what's your piece? Well, this is what I'm doing. And it's got F words and this and that, and it's crude. And I listen and I go, okay, is this the new school, what you're learning when you go to who's ever teaching you, that this is good theatre, as opposed to, say, the brilliance of Shakespeare? Am I wrong, or is this just a small diversity, or is this bad teaching? How do you feel as a young guy?
Can I just add context to that? Just because the question came from, have you ever been offended in the theatre? And so the thing has come up about the language. You just don't want to hear this language, and that it's turning people off. And so that led to this discussion about what's happening and if audiences or who's getting turned off and why it's new stuff like this.
I think as somebody who has read a lot of the classics, language has changed, and I think what a lot of young people deem offensive is not the same. I think a lot of the times when there's text that does use profanity, it's no different than like Joe Orton stuff.
Yeah.
Like when I read a Joe Orton play now, I go, whoa, what's going on? But that was the angry young men of that period, right? Who were pushing against the establishment. When it comes to like profanity for auditions, I think depends on what you're auditioning for and like who you're auditioning for. If you're auditioning for the arts club, I probably wouldn't do a piece that had a lot of profanity, just knowing what sort of things they program. But if you're auditioning for like a David Mamet play, I say go ham, swear all over the place. That's just my opinion.
Yeah. Yes,
I'm not
lady.
in theater at all, but I take public transit a lot, and I hear the F word constantly. So I don't think that it's everybody, but it's pretty common now.
So we've gotten used to it.
Yeah.
I wonder if using profanity is a temporary crutch between what was strong, brilliant usage of language and a growth to ensure finding something brilliant next. Is it a temporary crutch where people can feel, this is profanity, this is what we're doing, now so aren't we great? I mean, what do we think?
Yeah. Is it? Is it a crutch, do we feel? Let me see. Well, oh yes.
I'm not easily offended, but sometimes it seems to me that it's just kind of like going for low-lying fruit. It's like, if I say the F-bomb, I'll get a snicker or a laugh. I mean, if it's soldiers fighting, the idea that they would be going, please do this or don't, that's ridiculous. There would be a few F-bombs.
Yeah.
But to make it like, 3 of the 4 or 3 of the 7 words in a sentence, it's just it's not offensive. It's just lazy, I think.
It's like the word like, I think, it's just another word to fill in the gap till your next thought lands, kind of thing.
Maybe a lack of language, lack of knowing other adjectives.
Yeah, I think it's just, this is the filling
where you've been to school, wherever you hang out, what ages people are, what their education is. I mean, I know somebody that comes from Hope that can't say any sentence without at least 3 F's in it, right? And I mean, he's not that good. It's just the way he expresses himself because he probably barely got past grade 10 or something. And that's his, and he's a neighboring person, right? And
It's
that's just,
It's probably also the environment that the children grow up in at home. They initially learn those, my daughters were lucky in a way that they never heard swear words at home. Their father, for instance, he used them, I know, at work sites and whatever, but he never used them at home because he didn't want the daughters to learn those words at home. They learned them in school and stuff, but they did not learn them at home. So they learned to talk among the non-school friend crowd. They learned to use regular words.
Do you think?
Solution.
Yeah, Tim?
No. I just suddenly thought, do you think it would be helpful or useful? I know it might be fun to go back to rhyming slang. I mean, I grew up with there again with the East End, the rhyming slang, and I can't remember. I can remember apple. Yes, all the which I've and my friends and I we just loved it because you had to sort of think about what the person meant. I mean, they could be very rude to you, and yet not be rude to you until you'd go away and you think, what was he trying to say? And I suddenly, I mean, you're right. I think that rhyming slang, and I'm not sure of the history of it, how it. I mean, obviously it developed in the local area over a long period of time.
Could you give us an example?
So,
Could you give us an example?
Well, is it you think apples and pears?
Richard III, birds,
Birds.
women. So that would be very deep because they said, look at the Richards, and you go, what? The Richard III's, the birds.
The birds, yeah.
Women.
So and some would be quite rude. Some would be quite rude, and others would be quite fun. But it was just a thought.
Mental processing that you've got to unravel.
Yes,
and,
yes.
But it's familiar.
Yes,
You use it all
yes,
the time
yes.
to everybody.
But now
They don't have that processing.
what I want to bring up, I've had this question a lot of people. This for you, Tanya, would be interesting. I've had this from a lot of people, friends of mine, and even actors. Netflix, and I have to admit that sometimes I have been hypnotized by a program on Netflix, and how the fear of Netflix, and when my colleagues talk to me about it, and young ones too, is that it means you stay at home, that you don't go to theatre, because it's all on Netflix. Local television is, well, it's always been dire. I went for an audition yesterday. The script was fucking believable.
Very appropriate.
Yeah. When you think all the people in LA who are writers, and if they've found a writer to write this, you go, dear gods. But the question is Netflix destroying our theatre? Is destroying our choice? Because I know, and this terrible confessions, if it's raining or snowing, I'm going to watch Netflix and not go to the theatre. Can we do anything about this? Does this affect you guys? Are you conscious of it? Do you go, I don't go to the theatre anymore because it's all on Netflix?
If you can find anything worth watching,
That's true.
But there are good things on Netflix. Local television, dreadful. But there are good things on Netflix.
Yeah.
Kate.
I think things changed so much with COVID because, we were all at home, but you could get everything. You could get, the afternoon at the Met and what have you, they would have all those old programs that you could watch and that. And it seems to me that a lot of people, and a lot of the younger people, got used to watching everything on TV or having their phones or streaming or whatever, and it got to be so easy You know, instead of getting dressed up and putting on your raincoat and grabbing an umbrella and what have you, instead of going out and enjoying time together with people. And that is something that disturbs me a lot, is that we don't have as much now that, you know, I always think of theater as the shared experience and then the individual response. And you don't get that when you're sitting watching Netflix or watching whatever. So we're missing out on so much. But I do think a lot of it started with COVID, and people just aren't used to as much just going out. It's kind of a bother for a lot of people to go out now.
Costs money too.
Jane, how does this affect you? You're on Saturna, so you're in
Well, I don't have a TV.
Well,
Oh, there we go.
there you go.
No, no, I mean, you can watch on the iPad, you know.
Oh,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
But
And
no, I
stream.
don't watch a lot of stuff because it's, you know, you're so sedentary. If you go to the theatre, at least you have to
Sitting there.
walk there, or you've got to get your car out and you've got to drive. So it's much more active. It's a much more active pastime.
Yeah.
But I do find it scary when you do go to the theatre. The number of grey heads are there, and very few brown and proper blonde. I mean, not the dyed blonde. They're there in a big way, but.
But that's another, in a way. I mean, yeah, I don't say we're all affluent, but who of the young group, poor buggers that they are, can afford
I know that's
$100 for a ticket?
Expensive, yeah.
Taylor Swift, it's no problem.
Exactly.
Yes.
What's that?
Yes.
If it's Taylor Swift, it's no problem.
But
There's money there.
it's probably the parents. But, well, yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
You're right. But it is frightening.
It is.
But because how do young kids go to the theatre when somebody told me even there's rush seating and that. But let's finish the question with Tim. What do you think? Have you been won over to Netflix? Because you go to the theatre and so.
No, I wouldn't say won over. I think it's amazing that what I like looking at sometimes is going back to old shows, old shows that I remember that are now on YouTube and not necessarily Netflix or YouTube, and that's quite fun because you can see things that you've really loved, you know, going back 40 years or so. Thinking about what people are saying, it strikes me that's part of the importance of really making sure that sort of theatre and the arts are I would say front and centre in schools, and certainly from elementary school and in secondary schools. And I know it has been a problem. I mean, as I mentioned to begin with, I was lucky enough to grow up at a time when that was the case. Now there wasn't television to begin with, but I think that planting that seed can make a huge difference, I think, for young people, even now. Because I think, from what I read, I gather a lot of the young people that, as you say, you know, constantly on their phone. Apparently there are more and more people in that sort of 15 to 25 age group who are actually policing their own use of the phone, and they're actually kind of switching off, or they're blocking various things. It sounds as if that's happening. I'm not surprised because, you know, it's brain overload. And just one little thing that occurred to me in our discussion is that the importance of getting back to theatre and getting theatre more involved in an aging society. There's more and more interesting work in medical research to show that theatre, musical theatre, whatever, all the performing arts are so important in keeping the elderly brain functioning reasonably well. As you can probably, mine's not functioning as well sometimes, but and some recent work, for example, showing that just the introduction of music and even a simple musical theatre to a group of people who with early dementia can make a huge difference and bring them out of themselves and take them back. And have actually been writing to my Member of Parliament actually about this kind of putting funding towards that kind of thing, you know, because that's so important, and that would do wonders for all the arts, theatre as well as.
And I
music.
gather you probably know, Tony, there are schools for young kids or at day school. At Tennyson School, I had a lot of colleagues that they had a theatre great theatre program there. Do they still have it? Do you know?
You know, again, that's a Seamus question. He's all over that kind of thing. But there is, I mean, there's a number, like a lot of schools have a great, Templeton has a fantastic.
It may have been Templeton, it may have been
theatre
Templeton.
department.
Yes.
So it's there, yes.
This, I'm not sure if it's Point Grey, Lord Byng has another
Lord-
one.
They yeah.
had the first one.
Yeah.
And then there's one that does a partnership with Arts Umbrella, so they do the mornings at, you know, their high school, and in the afternoons, they do 4 hours every afternoon in the
Oh, that's
discipline, whether
fair.
they're a dancer or an actor or whatever, or a theater, that they do in conjunction with, I think it's called Half School or something, with Arts Umbrella. So, I mean, there's an awareness of it, but, you know, arts is being cut in schools across the boards, and, you know.
Well, that's that,
And I,
yes.
and I
Yeah.
think what happens is science and things move forward, that gets the funding, and all the computery tech stuff does, because that's the way the world is changing. You know, sports always for fitness, but again, I'm trusting it'll balance back, because it has to, as they recognize the gap.
Yeah.
Because there will be a gap that it needs to be filled, because it'll be so clear.
Yes.
I think the Fringe Festival gets a younger audience.
Yes.
Oh, yes,
Yes.
yes.
So I think there's a difference
Yes,
when
that's
we're
it.
all of an age and we're expecting something different of theater. I was shocked, What you can get on your phone now is a little 10-minute play. I mean, you don't even have to watch a whole story that goes on for half an hour, let alone 2.5 hours. So they're all just getting it over quickly. That's another change in the younger culture.
And it's just a change. I think we have to, I try to recognize, it's a change. And just because it's not the way that we live, it's, the world is theirs, is their next, and so they can change it. I'm sure we changed it, or, you know, I know that, you know, things were changed when planes started to fly. Things were changed when the telephone came in. Things were changed when a fax machine happened. I remember a fax machine being completely weirded out by that, you know? And I think language will change, and theater will change, audiences will change, right?
Yeah,
they move
as
through.
long as there are the people, the artists, or with that artistic temperament to do it. I'll quickly, and then I'll talk to Malcolm. A zillion years ago, I did a movie called Double Jeopardy, and there was a guy called Roy Edger, a teacher in Fleetwood in Surrey, and he and his wife would come to see the shows I was in, and I got this mail, met him in the lobby. He said, would I come and talk to his class about being an actor in a TV, in a movie? And I said, sure. And what he had done, he'd shown the class the movie. And I go down to the school in Surrey, and it was not a school that it was a cabin, a bloody long cabin, you know, corrugated roof, jam-packed, and there were people outside, these kids, and he said, we can get you, and they fitted them in. And I talked about doing this movie and what it was like to be an actor in movies. And their job was to work as a reporter. And so their assignment was to write an essay or an article in a paper. And I did this, I think, over a year. I did 6 of them, the same thing, talking about being an actor. And he said he had a waiting list of kids. A lot of them probably are in prison now. I don't mean that snobbishly, but they were kids that were rough, and they were as amazing and polite, and questions that they asked were fantastic. It was a phenomenal, and I said to him, this is incredible. A couple of years later, and I don't want to hit the school ball here, but he got a notice he can't do it. It's costing too much. It wasn't costing any money. It was just that the kids wanted to come to his class because it was creative. And it gets back to the creators. So I want one more question, but also, do you think Netflix is destroying theatre?
Destroying is a very strong word. Clearly, there's a temptation not to go out in the evening. And we used to say plays cost at least twice as much as going to see films. And I use the word film, movie I regard as American, and try not to say movie. But that's a silly digression, I suppose. I would be anxious, but not losing sleep yet over the attractions of Netflix and a lot of other things you can easily access, including Knowledge Network, which is educational
Knowledge is
some
brilliant.
days of the week.
In fact, watch the program tonight, Knowledge on Japan. It's excellent. But now I just...
Could I make a comment?
Yeah.
One of the things that has really excited me about theatre and the effect of COVID is the hibernation of movement and mind and dance and theatre. And the work of the Electric Company, I think, was a pre-COVID forerunner of many of the things that have emerged since then. But the work that the Electric Company did was groundbreaking, and now they're doing another Electric Company show coming up very soon after being paused, it seems. But that wonderful sort of blend of mime, visuals, and voiceover, the work that Crystal Pike and Jonathan did together was amazing. And what was the show we saw in Perth at the Malcolm?
Which one?
Jonathan and
the German.
yes, the Behoffentroff, I think it was called. Malcolm can't hear very well today. Behoffentroff, the movement piece, and he was a wonderful actor. He got an award in Britain for being the best dancer, an annual kind of...
Oh, Johnson Young.
Jonathan Young, yes. But it's that hibernation of those things that is marvelous. And it was just coincidental that there was a wonderful, we went to quite a few of the fringe things this year. We didn't kind of get too embedded because they changed the programs around. But there was another metamorphosis and I don't know if anybody saw it. It was absolutely brilliant. It was the last thing we saw at the Fringe, and it was done by a Hungarian company, I believe. Malcolm, can you remember? Can't hear me well enough. But anyway, it was done pretty well, almost in mime, and it was not at all the scripts that Seamus did, of course, but it was totally in mime with just music, and it was so powerful. It was just brilliant. And, the rest of the stuff I saw at the Fringe, I thought, what a waste of money.
But
so,
what you said about Crystal Pite.
Yeah.
Crystal Pite is, I only met her once. Some of you may know her. She's a Vancouver choreographer.
Yeah.
But what was incredible, the other year, I think she won the Olivier Award.
well, so Jonathan, it was that same kind of award that Jonathan got for performing, for
I remember,
dancing.
and
I
I
mean,
was
that wasn't
at the
his
Palais
background at all.
Garnier. I was looking at the season the other year, and Crystal Pite was...
Oh, God, she's
So,
way up there.
and we've got to recognise that. Okay, we're running out of time, so I'm very quickly go round. And to all of us, I want to know one person, one thing, one piece of music, whatever, that you love. I mean, I'll say off my head, say Olivier in Dance of Death. But who wants to start?
Don't ask me.
Jane? What about seeing your daughter in the play which I'm going to see in the fall? What are you doing?
Oh,
Alice in Town.
Well, you know that. I mean, I wouldn't...
Tell your daughter. She was outstanding.
I do tell her.
All right.
She knows I love that one. I'll be back to see it. And I'm bringing 2 people from Saturna.
There you go.
Great. Oh, I absolutely adore the movie Cabaret and the musical Cabaret and the DVD and the CD and everything else. And it's my theme song about, what good is sitting alone in your room, right?
Play that role.
That's right. I just love it. I love it. I've watched it several times.
Yeah. Malcolm, can you pull out anything that, wow.
You've just mentioned Laurence Olivier, and in 1955 at Stratford, England, Olivier played Malvolio and Titus Andronicus on consecutive nights. And I swear he was 6 inches taller as Titus than he was as Malvolio. And that really taught me something about the impact of great acting, which in Olivier's case included the way he spoke the language as well as everything physical.
Yeah, that's lovely. Tim?
I just think one of the people that I've always loved and Alan Bennett. And,
Yes.
and anything that Alan Bennett has written and has acted in. And Tanya, and I was trying to think the piece that you did of one of his series. Remember you did the...
I've done, yeah, Lady of Letters and,
La-
and Her Big Chance.
Lady, yes.
Lady of Letters, yeah.
Lady
Irene
Leather,
wrote
yes.
it.
Yeah.
Because I want to,
We're gonna,
I want to do the chip in the sugar.
yeah.
Oh, lovely, yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's great.
Okay. Larry Lillo in Nijinsky.
In what?
Larry
Nijinsky.
Lillo used to run a playhouse.
Tamanhouse too. He was Tamanhouse. Larry Lillo.
Yes, indeed.
Well,
And-
that's my one.
That was at Tamanus, was it?
I think it was Tamanhouse at the college.
At the college.
Yeah.
Wasn't amazing? I mean, the
Malcolm,
culture's
you were on the
amazing.
board of Tamanhouse.
I was. I
Larry
was publicist at one time for Tamanus
But
too.
Larry was Tamanhouse, wasn't he?
Oh, very much
Yeah.
so, yes. He was, and then long before he got the Playhouse, and then
Yeah.
he was a sick man all too soon at the Playhouse and was still its artistic director when he died.
I moved into PAL in January, and I'm in David Peterson's apartment. David Peterson was an actor in Tamanus.
It's a film,
Yeah.
Phantom Thread, with the man who played my left foot. What's his name?
Daniel Day-Lewis.
Yes.
Oh, God.
Fabulous.
He's
I've seen it
remarkable.
4 times. I could see it 5 times.
Oh, yeah.
He went into retirement. He's coming out of retirement now. Yeah.
This is going to be difficult because I've been to a lot of plays and I really enjoy theatre and I always have. But to keep it local and recent, what I really enjoyed was at Jericho and it was the Watsons. Because I thought the playwright and the players in the play at Jericho were amazing. It was a very creative look at that period in time. And the acting was amazing. I don't know how they got all these actors onto that very small stage. The set was very simple, and the playwright, when actually, I can't remember, somebody help me out here who the playwright is. It's a woman from the UK, and Jericho put on the first performance in Canada. It was local to me, and I really enjoyed the playwright's work of looking at what would happen to all these
And
characters.
what was the play again?
The Watsons.
The Watsons. It sounds like Joan Bryan.
Was that Joan?
Yes, it was
Joan Bryan.
It was, yeah.
Yeah.
And Nick,
I was inspired by a musical film, I guess, if I want to call it that, was The Greatest Showman. I loved every song. It was Hugh Jackman was the star of it. I could watch it over and over and over again. Just like, all the songs were inspiring and it was beautifully done. I loved it.
he's talented, that guy.
Neat.
I like the plays that are going on here at PAL for the seniors. I really liked Home. I laughed
Me
the whole
too.
time. Catherine Shaw's play again I saw this afternoon
yeah.
on a film. And it was just, and the way you shot it and everything, like it was a really good production. Yeah, both of them, the live one and the online.
They certainly, when I saw her opening, they certainly enjoyed themselves.
Oh, yeah.
I think Roy had a nervous breakdown, but they enjoyed it.
Oh, my love, I'm just fabulous. I saw a wonderful play at the Belfry Theatre in Victoria, and a wonderful actor, Gwyneth Walsh, who has played in Stratford. And the cast was also interesting because there were maybe 2, maybe 3 really professional actors, and the others were people from various backgrounds who were just getting their feet wet. And Gwyneth said it was challenge working with them, but a good challenge, and she was fabulous.
What was the name of the play?
I wish I could, it was a Lorca play.
Oh,
Blood.
I loved it. And the simplicity of the set is magnificent.
Did you go to that production?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was fabulous.
And Marty, what about you?
Anthony Ingram in Chekhov's Shorts.
Oh.
No.
Where did you see that? When was that done?
It was Godfrey Theatre, and it was, I don't know, 2 years ago, 3 years ago. It was, they called it Chekhov's Shorts, and it was shorts, Chekhov.
Yeah.
And Anthony Ingram tried to get soup from his bowl to his mouth. And I guess it's the funniest thing I've ever seen. And he flew it, I mean, I'm a big fan.
Tanya, you got any?
Oh, yeah, well, so many, right? I'm trying to think of something local, though, right? I think the overcoat blew me away.
Oh, that's.
Oh,
Yeah.
I loved
it too.
So that was just a big, beautiful physical theater piece that was just beautiful.
Yeah.
Loved
There
it.
wasn't any talking.
No, it was
That's
not.
right, no
It's-
talking.
It was all-
Lovely Peter Anderson was in it, and he's just like a piece of elastic.
Yeah.
Just so fantastic.
The
Yeah.
body speaks.
It was Prokofiev music all the way through, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was all the
Yeah,
music, and I
yeah,
think
yeah.
Wendy worked on it, and yeah, I loved it. Loved it.
My favorite is, I have a selfish reason, it's Auntie Mame, not the musical.
Oh,
Not the musical.
Not the musical. And all 4 of my children were in it, and it was the first time I ever worked backstage, because I had to be there anyway. I was bored, I went backstage and said, give me a job.
Oh, where was that?
It was at Ottawa Little Theatre.
And it wasn't the musical
It
event.
was not a musical. Not one note was sung.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah, my overall, the most incredible performance was a few years ago in New York City. I saw Jessica Lange in Eugene O'Neill's Long Day's Journey to Night. And the monologue that she did at the end, when she's standing at the edge of the stage, it was just, it still brings chills down my back when I think about that. And she did
Thank you.
for her performance, and I thought she should, and I was right. It was absolutely amazing. But locally speaking, a few months ago, I went to see a little play at, not a Gauts theater, but in a little theater that's attached to the Gauts.
The Lab.
The Lab. And it was a play called Behind the Moon, and the playwright was a young fellow by the name of Anos Irani. Lois Anderson interviewed him at VPL, and I went to hear the interview. I bought his book, and then I went to see the play. The main character in that play, I had a front row seat, and he was pretty much right in front of me. Absolutely amazing. I don't remember his name, but it was absolutely amazing in his play, and it was almost like he was in another world. None of us existed for him. It was, and I don't remember. And I talked to him after the performance, and I said, well, you know, are you looking to go to Broadway? I said, well, what is your, let's say, hope for the future? And he says, I'm there. So it's interesting too for me that he was performing at the tiny little theater, and that was his goal, that's where he wanted to be. But it was absolutely amazing play and a wonderful performance.
Lovely.
Yeah, I don't think I have, I don't think I've seen enough plays, I can't believe it.
I saw a lot of things at the Fringe, but I'll bring up Dawson Creek in the mid-90s. The high school put on performances each year, and they did Reflections on Crooked Walking. Really, really better than the one I saw here.
But Marty did the original set in 80 costumes. 84 was that?
Who's it?
1984?
Oh, probably, yeah.
Then where did you see it, sorry?
In Dawson Creek.
Oh, wow.
Hey.
Yeah. And then I think the other one I saw was South Pacific, but I'm not too sure, but they were really, really good. High school kids.
And Jane, did we?
I came up with the view from the bridge that I saw in Chicago, but it was the National Theatre, one of the London theatres. It was
Oh.
spooky.
Like the swimming pool?
No, when all the blood fell off the roof.
Yeah.
Get down on the end.
Amazing production.
Did you see it?
I saw it on Broadway.
Oh, well,
Yeah,
it was probably the same tour if I saw it in
yeah,
Chicago. Yeah.
Yeah.
It gave me the creeps.
Yeah. And so we finished on Cabaret. Thank you, thank Tanya, and thank what, our young ones. Something that's moved you guys in theatre. Stand up and tell us. One each. Come on.
Taylor Swift.
Oh,
yay. I'm part of the problem. I'm destroying local theatre because
oh dear.
But tell me, you didn't pay $1,000, did you?
I paid more than $1,000.
Oh.
Also, hang on. I bought reseller tickets. They were reselled. I also was also not going to a great time when I bought those tickets. I think the original OG price, I think like the highest price that I saw for people paying, it was like $200. So like, it's not like the highest price, I'm talking like 4 seats for like $200 originally.
Tanya, you've got a sponsor. But was it good?
Oh, it was amazing.
Yeah.
I would have gone to that concert like 20 times. It was amazing.
There you go. There's the young people.
Neat.
I had the privilege of getting to see Cabaret on stage in New York this past May, and that was incredible because Cabaret is one of my favorite shows of all time as well. But it also had one of my personal heroes, Orville Peck, as the MC, so that was incredible.
Was that what's his name? Redmayne? Eddie Redmayne played.
He was the original one who kicked off that production in New York, but I saw a different MC. Yeah, but it was really special.
Okay.
Brilliant.
Andre.
I remember watching everybody at Studio 58. I think that was it was a show about figuring out the meaning of life, and then basically throughout the whole show, you're just questioning the meaning of life, and you're kind of going through existential crisis as you're witnessing the show. Yeah, I think that was probably the most interesting experience in theater.
Was that a show that was done by the students? Because you were a student.
Well, at Studio 58, like it was their main stage production.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My friend there.
It's not theater, but my father used to be in an orchestra. So when I was younger, I always like go to the opera house and watch him play, and it's a really good experience.
Sorry, what was that? There was.
My father used to play in orchestra.
And was that here?
In Odessa, Ukraine.
There you go. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's the end of our